Hi, Steve here. The country has been shut down by the invisible enemy.
I want to assure the American people that we're doing everything we can each day to confront and ultimately defeat this horrible, invisible enemy. Invisible enemy. Invisible enemy.
When we see headlines like this, confirmed coronavirus cases in U.S. surpasses 800,000 and more than 1,000 die in 24 hours to bring death toll to 42,940. As WHO chief warns, the worst is yet ahead of us. We should ask ourselves, how do we know this is all from the virus? And then there's this really charged up piece of bull hockey. Coronavirus has mutated into at least 30 different strains, new study finds. But read the subheadline. The study was carried out by Professor Li Lanjuan and colleagues from Zhejiang University in Hangzhou, China, and published in a non-peer-reviewed paper released on a website, medrxiv.org, on Sunday. Well, that's all I need to hear. It seems real to me. The article says a new study in China has found that the novel coronavirus has mutated into at least 30 different variations. Why not say it's mutated into 130 variations? I guess they wanted it to sound more plausible, more believable if you believe everything they keep telling you. The results show that medical officials have vastly underestimated the overall ability of the virus to mutate, in findings that different strains have affected different parts of the world, leading to potential difficulties in finding an overall cure, unquote. Do you know what they want you to believe? They want you to believe that this is the most contagious and unpredictable virus that's ever walked the face of the earth, and that you'll never escape, ever. They want you to believe that this virus will go on forever.
Forever.
The narrative going out about this virus is more vague than a Joe Biden speech.
Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. It would put 720 million women back in the workforce. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. What's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
The inconsistencies in what they've been telling us day after day is also ridiculous.
Dr. Scott Jensen joins me now. Doctor, I want to read for our viewers what the CDC says in part about how to count COVID deaths relating to that last issue we just raised. In cases where a definite diagnosis of COVID cannot be made, but is suspected or likely, like the circumstances are compelling with a reasonable degree of certainty, it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate as probable or presumed. So, doctor, what's the problem with that?
Well, in short, it's ridiculous. I spent some time earlier today just going through the CDC's manual on how to complete death certificates and the parts that were specifically written for physicians. And in that manual, it talks of precision and specificity, and that's what we were trained with. The determination of the cause of death is a big deal. It has impact on estate planning. It has impact on future generations. And the idea that we're going to allow people to massage and sort of game the numbers is a real issue, because we're going to undermine the trust. And right now, as we see politicians doing things that aren't necessarily motivated on fact and science, the public's their trust in politicians is already wearing thin. If I have a patient died a month ago, had fever, cough, and died after 3 days, and maybe had been an elderly, fragile individual, and there happened to be an influenza epidemic around our community, I wouldn't put influenza on the death certificate, and I've never been encouraged to do so. I would put probably respiratory arrest would be the top line, and the underlying cause of disease would be pneumonia. And in the contributing factors, I might well put emphysema or congestive heart failure. But I would never put influenza down as the underlying cause of death. And yet that's what we're being asked to do here.
Dr. Fauci was asked about the COVID death count today. Here's what he said in part.
What do you say to those folks who are making the claim without really any evidence that these deaths are being padded, that the number of COVID-19 deaths are being padded?
You will always have conspiracy theories when you have very challenging public health crises. They are nothing but distractions.
Conspiracy theories, doctor? So you're engaging in conspiracy theories. What do you say to Dr. Fauci tonight?
Well, I would remind him that anytime healthcare intersects with dollars, it gets awkward. Right now, Medicare has determined that if you have a COVID-19 admission to the hospital, you'll get paid $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, you get $39,000, 3 times as much. Nobody can tell me after 35 years in the world of medicine that sometimes those kinds of things impact on what we do. Some physicians really have a bent towards public health, and they will put down influenza or whatever because that's their preference. I try to stay very specific, very precise. If I know I've got pneumonia, that's what's going on the death certificate. I'm not going to add stuff just because it's convenient.
You reject what he said?
Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting that in Italy, where it's socialized medicine, I guess they don't have an interest in the money, if that's what it is here. And they just went back and they started reclassifying deaths according to their top scientific advisor. So they admitted that they were being liberal or generous in how they coded some of these deaths, and they're just going back and reclassifying them. Does that surprise you?
It really does. I mean, let's just take someone getting hit by a bus and they collapse along and they go into the emergency room and they're there for 15, 20 minutes. Blood work comes back, COVID test comes back positive, and they die 20 minutes later because of their collapsed lung. We're going to put that down as COVID-19? That doesn't make any sense.
We're sitting back and watching our country being flushed down the toilet. Not only are we being forced to hide away from this invisible virus, but we're also watching our economy being flushed down as well. I received this email today and I thought, wow, he's right. Socialism and our drift towards Bernie's campaign promises, I just realized he won. It's where we are and where we'll end up. And the presidential election isn't even needed because Bernie won. China, state preparedness, Facebook, UGEtube, and harmful misinformation, small business death, snitching, closing beaches, protesting civil liberties, paying people not to work, suppression of expression, social distancing, debate, demonization, surveillance state. Yes, Bernie won.
Thank you, Vermont.
Bernie 2020 ideas have us eating the U.S. Constitution, and I just don't see any dessert coming. Congratulations, Bernie.